Hello Linux fans, Rob here and welcome to Linux Quest. It's been a busy Sunday at Linux Quest. Peppermint 8 has released. The official release is out. Surprised me, really. Took me by surprise because I'd been following it, but just didn't know that today was the release day. So I'm very excited to share with you an overview of Peppermint 8. I know many of you out there have Peppermint 7 as your daily driver. I know it's got a strong following, so kind of looking forward to this myself. I've run Peppermint 7 in the past and found it to be a fast and stable operating system with a good mix of options, the ICE browser, things like that. So let's jump over first and look at the release notes. This is available in 32-bit and 64-bit editions, so I know that'll be good for many of you out there with older hardware and you require 32-bit versions. Also, the ISO came in at about 1.2 gigs. The install process was flawless, which is what you want. One of the things that I really appreciate with Peppermint is that you get a direct install option as opposed to launching into a live environment and then doing an install. All right, so the base is still 1604 of Ubuntu, based off of Ubuntu, but the kernel's been updated to 4.8 series. Also, for graphics or gaming improvements, you've got Mesa 17.0.2. And now there's an OEM install option. So if you're a PC builder, you can ship with, or you've got the option to do an OEM install and ship your system with a fresh version of Peppermint. All right, some other changes from user request. They've done some work with improved keyboard layout handling, and now you've got the ability to easily configure and swap multiple layouts. You can access from right here where this nice big American flag is. We'll talk about that in just a minute. They've also added volume management, so you plug in an external drive, it's going to auto mount and pop up. Also, if you put in a DVD, it's going to play automatically within VLC, but there's a utility where you can change that. Also, from more user feedback, Chromium is now the default web browser as opposed to Firefox. However, for the Firefox users, they've included the Firefox theme lock utility that was there before, and that allows you to go in and change to like the dark themes. Monte Calculator's been put in place of the previous calculator. Now the XFCE4 task manager is in place over LX task. Apparently it uses less CPU and RAM. You can also install all of the X apps, so X Player, things like that. Also, they've added NFS support out of the box as well as exFAT support, and also included is the Open Dyslexic font, so I know that could be helpful to some of you users. The font hinting has been changed to full by default, and I think it looks nice. They have expanded the Peppermint settings panel, which is one of my favorite features. It now includes tweaks, so we'll look at that. Also, they've included a panel reset utility, so if you're down here changing things and maybe you mess something up, you can go right into reset and it'll take it back to the default, which is pretty much what we see here. And they've added utility to the Peppermint settings panel to enable or disable system sounds as well as hibernation. So lots of control settings put into this Peppermint settings panel, which again I really like and look forward to sharing this with you. Also, with the Numix folder icon themes that are in place, you can now go in and change the folder color of the Numix icon. So when you apply the Numix icon set, your folders will be the specific color that you choose, which is awesome because although I may like the Numix icon set, I've never really liked the kind of orangey brown folders that are in place. So now you can change that, which is great. In fact, I went in and I changed it to blue earlier before this recording. Also on the Whisker menu, they've done some things that I think are just great because they've set it up exactly the way I personally would have used it. One of the great things about the Whisker menu is it's highly configurable, so you can really make it what you want, what works well for you. But again, from user feedback, they've kind of switched things around to be exactly the way I would have used it. You've got extra color options for some of the GTK icon themes. There's a new slideshow in place when you're doing the install, and some beautiful, beautiful wallpapers by Ray Billcliffe. And so I'm going to put a link to his website, and we'll take a look at some of those within the wallpaper changer. Just beautiful work there, Ray. All right, so let's kind of pop out over here. Again, this is going to be an overview. This is not the default wallpaper. I set this up, so let's just go on into the wallpaper launcher, and I want to set this up with, well, did I? Okay, I chose the wrong thing. User error. All right, so here's the wallpaper switcher, and again, this is all Ray's work, just beautiful stuff. What loaded up by default was this, so we'll change to that, and then we'll change back. Just want you to see what you'll see when you first boot in. All right, so right click again. This is an active desktop, so you can add icons, folders, so on and so forth. We'll go back into the wallpaper changer, and let's find Sandstone. I like this because as we go through the video, it won't pull away from the different settings and things we're going to look at during the video. All of these wallpapers are just kind of really super high res looking. They look almost, I don't know, double HD or something. Just beautiful images. Okay, I want to talk about the Whisker menu, and the way this is now configured over 7 is that the main categories are on the left while the applications are on the right, and that's the way I would go in and set it up myself. In fact, in Peppermint 7, I took the time to go in and do that. Also, instead of having descriptions underneath the application list, you see a pop-up telling you what it is, as opposed to taking up space underneath. I think it makes for a much cleaner layout under Whisker Menu. Now, Whisker Menu is highly configurable. I've done several videos on XFCE, which is where the Whisker Menu comes from, and or is a part of, or is an option for under XFCE. Really configurable. You can really set this thing up to be, you know, kind of what you want, what works for you, and that's what's so appealing about it. But I really applaud the theming and everything that's going into place with the Whisker Menu here to make it look really different from any other Whisker Menu setup out there. So job well done. At first glance you may say, well, square icons and round icons, they just don't work together, but here they really do. It's really, God, they're bright, they're vibrant. You know, it's not the typical flat look that you see in a lot of desktop themes today. All right, enough said there. Let's move on and talk about the panel layout and everything. What you see here is default. You can change much or all of this. You've got desktop switcher in place, so you could right click and remove that if you don't use a desktop switcher. I personally do not. So you can just remove that and get that out of your way. You're going to find here for keyboard settings, so you could launch right into that with a right click and go right into those keyboard settings. Again, we're not going to dig into every detail here. This is an overview. Maybe later we'll get into more details. Plus, I have a feeling there are going to be lots of videos on this release, so in some of the fellow YouTube channels. So some other properties you've got here. So maybe you don't want this large flag from your country. You can go in and choose text, for example. And then you can control that text. So we could take that to regular and move that down to a more manageable size, something that kind of fits in here. You've got clock settings, so you could go into properties and choose, for example, there we'll take that out of 24-hour mode. So you can control the majority of this. Again, you can add and remove from here. If you right click on the panel and go into panel preferences, you can now change the size of this, and I bumped this up from the default just for the video so that you could see things a little better within the video. So we could, you know, bump that up to much larger, for example. We'll take that down to something a little more manageable. I think by default it came in around 24. Again, I've got other videos on the XFCE panel and everything. Now, I believe that the Peppermint desktop environment is a combination of LXDE, some of LXDE, and then a lot of XFCE. Nevertheless, it's light, it's very fast, and it's very configurable. You've got the round icons in place here for quick access. These are basically just shortcuts that you can place from any app or any ICE app, which we'll talk about ICE here in just a moment. All right, let's take a look at the lineup. We're going to go to Accessories, and we'll stretch this menu on up here. Application Finder, Archive Manager, Calculator. Let's get on down here. Files, Image Viewer, Screenshot Tool, and you've got kind of two different options here for this, which is a little puzzling to me. It may just be that I don't know why you would use one over the other. So we'll maybe take a look at that in a minute. Search for Files, Terminal, Text Editor, and Wallpapers, which we launched into earlier. They do have a few games in place here: 3D Chess, Entanglement, on down to Spider Solitaire. Under Graphics, you're not going to see a lot installed here. Instead, you're going to launch right into, say, Pixlr, which is an online photo management tool. We'll close that out. You could sign in. This is actually not an app. Well, I didn't mean to do that. This is actually set up within ICE. It works much like an application in that you can minimize, maximize. You could actually add a shortcut right down here as if it were an app, but you're actually working in the web for this. So let's close this out. We're going to leave, and you'll find that with a couple of other things here under Office. So here you see this is ICE, using ICE again. You've got Gmail, Google Calendar, and Google Drive. So these aren't actually applications. You're just going to launch right in, and one time you would sign into Gmail, and then the next time you're going to launch right into your online Gmail account, but again, it's going to be in a window. And let's drag this. I must have minimized. That's one thing about XFCE is you can kind of, let me get my mouse going. You can drag this stuff and change the size kind of on the fly. All right, enough of that. Let's try this one more time. I'm better than that, I think. Maybe I'm not. All right, now we're live. There we go. Okay, so you could treat this like you would with snapping left to right and things like that, kind of like you would treat an app that opened up inside of a window. All right, so let's move on. Games, graphics, internet. So here you're going to see the Chromium web browser. That's now default. BitTorrent client. Dropbox. Now this is actually the Dropbox app, if I could say it this evening. And once you launch into this, you're going to see the icon pop up here in the system tray. You could close out the browser because you could actually go here and right click and sign in from there. You've also got your preferences that you could set up. All right, so moving on, let's go to, oh, here we go, internet. I'm skipping around a little bit. Here is ICE. So this is actually where you'll go in to set up various online software accounts. Now I've got another video where I go through and show you how to set this up within Linux Quest. If you go to the channel and just do a search for ICE, it'll pull up the video on how you would set this up. Now I haven't dug into this to see what changes they have made. I know that now they include Vivaldi as an option, where before in Peppermint 7 that was not an option. So that's been included. All right, let's keep moving here. And then under preferences, you're going to see a lot here. And I'm not going to step through all of this because the majority of preferences and some of the system tools you're going to see in the Peppermint Control Center as well as the Peppermint Settings panel. And I love the way both of these are set up. This is the Numix Folders Changer, where you can go in and change the folder color within Numix. Let's see here. I believe the default is like style 4 or something like that. So I change this to blue. You could also add a custom color, which is kind of nice. This is the first time I've seen this as well, so kudos team for setting this up. So we're going to go ahead and click apply. It's going to apply those changes. You see the little pop-up here. And while that's doing that, we'll kind of move on because I want to jump over, well, sound and video. Let's go here. So GUVC view, Pulse Audio Equalizer, the Pulse Audio Control. I did install Simple Screen Recorder for this video, and then by default your media player is VLC, so a nice choice there. All right, let's go back over here to preferences. Actually, Let's move to System Tools. You'll see USB Image Writer, the Stick Formatter, as well as Update Manager, the Software Manager, but you also get GDebi, which is already set up and in place, as well as Synaptic Package Manager is in place. So it's nice to see that. Printers, Task Manager, Update Manager, Time and Date Control, Deconfig Editor for really you can configure the entire database, greeter settings, things like that. All right, now back to preferences, because I want to jump right over to the Peppermint Control Center. And here you can get into things like window manager settings, keyboard and pointer controls, keyboard shortcuts. Just look at this. We'll go ahead and maximize this. So you could set up your own or restore right back to defaults. Desktop effects, you've got all the controls in place here. And then under advanced, everything from window cycling, focus, accessibility, placement, lots here. So let's go back over. Here you can go into theming. So we've got the Numix theme in place. You could adjust title font. Click to focus. Again, a lot to see here. But again, we're just doing an overview. All right, now let's jump back over and then back into preferences. And then this is my favorite part here. This, I think, is fantastic work. The Peppermint settings panel. Now we see this in other distros where you take all of your settings and everything and you put it in one place. But I think the implementation here, it's beautiful. I love the round icons. I love the way you've got your categories here on the left. So it keeps everything in a nice, neat package for the user. And let's face it, if you're fairly new to Linux, maybe you still struggle with finding your way around to some of these settings. And let's just face it, if you look here under preferences, you've got a lot of that listed here, but it's kind of overwhelming. You know, there's a lot there. Firewall configuration, language support, monitor settings, you know, on and on, power manager, additional drivers, Adobe Flash Player, things like that. Yes, it's great to have links to that, but I love the fact that you've got a lot of this all built in here into the settings panel. In fact, I'd be just fine if you had it all just here in the settings panel and really you didn't have so much listed here. But, you know, to each his own. So under user, you've got the control center, which we looked at earlier. Customize the look and feel, so you could go in here and change everything from your widgets to your color to your icon theme. And so here, let's go into Numix Square. And yes, those are now going to be blue. So we click apply here and you're going to see everything change. Now that doesn't look really good. Those are close together. So I'm going to go back to Peppermint 7. But I just wanted you to be able to see that yes, we changed that typical brown orange Numix folder over to blue. And it worked just like it was supposed to. You can also change your cursor, your font, and there they've got that set to full, and I've got to say it looks really nice on my screen. Typically full doesn't do that well, but here it's looking good. And then you've got some other options, toolbar options and things like that. Lots you can go in and configure here. This is the customization we did earlier. We pulled that up. This is your wallpaper launcher. See, you can really just go here and then navigate into everything. Language support, Dropbox, keyboard settings. Then we've got tweaks here, so you could reset the panel to defaults. I'm not going to do that because I did that earlier in a previous recording and it switched back to my laptop monitor as opposed to my external monitor. Anyway, things didn't work out. So, but if you have messed around and you've changed things and you want to quickly go back to the defaults, that's the way to do it. Turn on or off system sounds, and I set that up earlier. Notification settings, you can control where the pop-ups are and that kind of thing. Theming as well, so you could change the theming on that. Lots of control here. Character map, your deconfig editor, auto mount settings, so that was new there. software update, system hibernation, and flash player properties. And then under hardware, your printer, your sound, monitor, additional drivers, audio equalizer. Oh, you do have an option during the install to install the updates and any codecs or anything like that. Just wanted to mention that to you. Monitor settings, power manager. Then under network, you've got the network manager. This is where you could go in and again create or delete and control ICE, proxy configuration, Bluetooth manager, adapter properties, firewall built in. This is that Firefox theme lock that they kept in place, Samba shares, and then you've got also the Thunderbird theme lock. And then lastly here we go to system, where you've got user and groups, time and date, startup and default applications. Lots of control there. Now you're starting to see, while this is an overview, there's a lot here in a fairly, well, not fairly, in a very light distro, but lots that you can go in and configure and control. Very flexible. Update manager, disk utility, software manager. Let's jump into that. And well done. Synaptic package manager. So here we go. And again, the theming's all in place with the rest of the OS. And you've got everything in categories, from featured to graphics. And so their repositories here, they say there's about 80,000 packages. I was able to find Simple Screen Recorder within the repositories and install that. You can do a quick search, or you could launch into the categories. You'll see ratings. Nicely done. They pulled in, I think, some good bits and pieces from other desktops and environments and really made this, I think, a nice, well-rounded, light operating system. Really do applaud the work here that's going into setting up the Peppermint settings panel. I think, again, this makes it easy for someone to navigate and understand what they're doing with, you know, categories and everything here. So overall, there's so much more we could talk about here. Let me go ahead and bring that down to more default look. System tools. Let me just go through and make sure I haven't missed anything. Let's look at their task manager. So you've got options here to show various states. Right now we're recording, so it's saying CPU at 23. Earlier I opened this up and it was like CPU at fluxing back between 1 and 2%. I mean, it was nothing. And again, just a very light, snappy feel. So I hope you have enjoyed this overview. I'm sure many of you out there are anxious to upgrade from 7. And, you know, I like what I see here at first glance. Again, haven't installed this or had this running long enough to talk about stability or anything like that. I would just say that I would bet dollars to donuts that this is going to be a really stable system because of what it's based off of. And they haven't gone in with any like major radical changes to anything to you know, to cause issues or things that might be surprises. And I think too that this is probably, and this is from reading into the forums and things like that, this is a team that doesn't release just to release. I think they're after, you know, that stable base. They have a pretty strong following, and they want to keep their users happy. Is kind of my understanding. So happy to see this, and hope this is helpful to you. And you know, exciting to see these fresh distros coming out like this. It's, I think, going to be a good year for Linux. All right, that's it for now, and we will check you later.